So I was looking at this picture.
Yep.
Do you have any memories of this?
Absolutely. I remember most pictures, most photographs.
This is a pilgrimage. It's what, 1982?
This is 1982. It's martial law, please remember. It's, so it's a specific time.
But this is what? This is summertime, right?
This is August. At the beginning of August, every year for the last, I think, 300 years or so, the Pauline monks in the Jasna Góra monastery have organized a pilgrimage on foot from Warsaw to the city of Częstochowa, where the Jasna Góra monastery is. And this has been taking place for the last several hundred years. But because this was martial law, there was very many pilgrims, about 50,000 pilgrims. Okay. So if you can imagine 50,000 pilgrims walking along from Warsaw along roads and then through fields like here.
And this is how many kilometers?
200.
200 kilometers.
And I decided to do it myself. I mean, I decided not to just drive there and see them, but I simply walked with them for 200 kilometers. Which was quite a feet, actually.
How long did that take?
It's 10 days. 10 days, about 10 days, yeah.
And what's life like on this pilgrimage?
Well, I must admit, I'm not a great... I'm not religiously involved, really. So I was there as a photographer, not so much because of religion and so on. But it's quite impressive to see, especially 50,000 people who are actually deep believers in the Catholic faith. And it's a very positive happening, I must admit. And the best part, of course, is the evenings when you had to go to sleep. Not easy, because to suddenly have 50,000 places in the middle of a field or something, or by a monastery, it's not easy, but it's very well organized. I slept in a tent with a friend, but people would sleep in barns, on straw. They would sleep in the corridors of a monastery or a church or something, or they simply sleep by the altar in a church. So it was, for a photographer, it was actually fantastic to see how people behave, the true believers, really.
But was there an infrastructure in place where, people knew where they were going to stay the night, and and local people would prepare the barns for them?
I never really saw how that was organized, but everything worked. I mean, the whole thing worked in the sense that nobody had to carry their luggage.
How did that work?
Except me, I had to carry my cameras, so it's not easy walking 200 kilometers with a heavy bag of cameras on your side, on your shoulder. But everybody else could only have their little knapsacks or something with an apple or a sandwich. But they would leave in the morning. They would leave wherever they are. They would leave their rucksacks or whatever in a big pile, and people would simply put that on, load them onto trucks, and the trucks would simply drive to the next place of the next night.
What about washing and showering?
Showering was rather impossible. Washing was slightly more possible.
Did you get to shower?
I never got to shower, no. I'm afraid not. No, I think it was really just some water and then just wash your face or whatever. But in the morning when you woke up, you could see all these men sort of shaving, and they had little mirrors stuck on trees to have a look, and then they would shave themselves, which I didn't have to do because luckily I had a beard. So.
By then you'd grown it. Yeah.
If you have a beard, you're okay as a pilgrim.
But everyone had to take their own food and water, and
this was interesting. I can't quite remember that actually. I remember water was the villages when you pass through villages, people would come out of their houses and they would have little tables full of apples and bits of cake and buckets full of water. So people would simply take their mugs and drink, and it was a very hot summer, so you needed that. But I can't remember.
Were people fainting along the way, and was there an ambulance?
I didn't. Well, following for 200 years, they might have fainted, but I never saw that. What was nice was in the evenings when we actually knew where we were sleeping, there was a special area where nuns would administer first aid. Everybody had blisters on their feet. And eventually I had blisters as well. And this was actually quite an interesting feeling to have nuns
washing your feet.
Washing and being very delicate on your feet and piercing the blisters. It was quite an interesting experience.
And then you were good to go the next day? After
more or less, yes. Yeah. The worst part of walking for 200 kilometers is the midday break. When you stop after walking for maybe 10 kilometers, you then have a break to have something to eat or whatever. Although I can't remember where we got the food from. This was an interesting
Stealing apples from orchards.
Stealing apples, yeah. Potatoes from the fields. No, I don't know, but what was everybody would then lie down and they would rest and so on. But getting up again was difficult. That's when everything. I mean, you just couldn't walk. Everything was aching. It was hurting. So the midday break was fantastic, except terrible to start again.
And was there a lot of praying masses every day?
I think. Well,
were you expected to take part in these?
I remember the main mass was at the end. There's a big sort of hill, forgiveness, the hill, if you translate what it's called in Polish.
What is it called in Polish?
Przeproszna górka.
Przeproszna górka.
In English,
the hill of forgiveness.
Yeah.
Apologies.
And that was a big mass on the hilltop.
Mass, not mass.
Mass?
Mass.
Holy Mass.
Holy Mass, not big mess.
No, actually it was a big mess because it started pouring with rain. The whole 10 days was fantastic, and except for this forgiveness Mass, the rain came down. The priests were sort of huddling around the altar trying to make sure that the chalices didn't fly away. And luckily people were prepared. They had plastic mats, and you could see these hundreds of people hiding under plastic, actually. So it was a mess. It was a mess during Mass.
And that was the grand finale of the pilgrimage.
That was and then the final kilometers to Jasna Góra.
To do what?
Then everybody ended up in front of the monastery, and they would either kneel or even lie prostrate on the ground. So some people, even I think a marriage took place. I think young couples who had walked for,
who met along the way.
they were married at the foot of the other monastery. So it's as I say, I'm not a great religious guy, but it's impressive to see people who actually believe in all this.
And then what? Everyone just walks home?
Eventually, yes.
So you have to walk 200 kilometers back? Or
yeah. I just took a taxi back to Warsaw.
But they actually walked back?
No, I think they had the buses or cars, or maybe their families would come with the cars and they'd pick them up. So people would eventually disperse and disappear.
And this was the only pilgrimage that you followed from start to finish?
The only pilgrimage from start to finish. But I did actually, but this was 82, but in 76, I think, I actually I didn't walk. I just drove to a certain place and photographed. But that's not a very good idea for people don't like that. I mean, the pilgrims were not quite happy to see somebody jumping out of the car with a camera and taking pictures. Right, it's much better to walk with them for 200 kilometers. They feel much better with that. So the best way to photograph it is simply to walk.
You always talk fondly of this lady, yeah?
Yeah.
Was she always at the front of the...
She was always there, and also for several years. When I used to watch her on television for other years, later and before, she's always there.
Who was she?
I have no idea who she was, but she must have been a very, very...
Very devout.
Very devout believer. And I always called her in Polish, Ciotka Rewolucji, or in English I'd say maybe a Sisters of the Revolution, because she was always there, and very, as you say, very devout.
Always in that hat with the flowers?
That hat, yes. Always at the beginning, at the front of the pilgrimage.
Wow. How did she manage that?
Well, if she's done it for several years, she knew how to do it.
Did you get to talk to her? Did you?
Oh, no. I didn't really talk to anybody, actually.
You made no friends along the way?
I had no strength to talk to anybody. Because you have to remember, they walk for 200 kilometers. As a photographer, you have to walk a lot more because you have to run there and back. Not to the end of it, because that's several hundred meters. But it's quite hard work, trying to catch points of interest, really. So if they just walk and that's it. Whereas I have to walk and then run back, and then walk back, and then run back again. So it's I didn't actually...
Became quite recognisable to those people, probably.
Yeah, absolutely. No. But it's actually, I must say, it really is an interesting, impressive affair.
And there's another picture I wanted to... I never actually asked you, is this the same the same pilgrimage, or is this?
Probably not.
Where was it? Somewhere here. Here, this one.
Yeah, this is inside easier, I think, and it's a male pilgrimage, just for men, really. So it's at a different time, different. This is May, I think. May, well, actually, I'm also 82, but May. But I must say, I was always fascinated by religion in Poland. For me, it was almost a medieval religion, the way people look at religion here, especially the Easter pilgrimages where there's mud and snow and so on, and people dress up as Jesus and Roman soldiers and so on. But this is more normal. But I spent a long time actually driving around with four. There's four of us, four photographer friends. I had a VW camper, and we simply drive to all these pilgrimages all over Poland, whether they were Orthodox or Catholic or whatever. So I was just fascinated by religion in Poland, really.
So, I mean, from what I know, you grew up in a pretty religious household. I remember Babcia, your mother, was quite a devout Catholic. You went to a Catholic school even in London.
I was always in a Catholic school in London, and then when my parents decided I wasn't studying very well, they threw me out and put me into a Benedictine monastery, a boarding school in Hereford.
Boys only?
Boys only, except for the final year when I was there. They tried an experiment with one girl. And I was the one who made friends with her because I was the only normal guy there. I mean,
the only guy with any experience with girls.
Exactly. I'd lived all my life in a family with sisters, friends, and so on. Whereas these boys in these Catholic, in any boarding school in England, they'd been in boarding schools since they were 5 years old. So and there was usually men only or girls only. So they didn't really know how to talk to girls. And here I don't practice it much either, except I was very, very interested in the way the Poles practice. And so for a photographer, it's paradise in the sense that these are really things which should be photographed. Photographer has to sort of be interested in things. It's no point in just sitting at home on a sofa and doing nothing. You have to be interested in life in general. But in this case, I was just interested in. Apart from being in Poland, I was interested in the way Poles treat religion. Mm-hmm. Very, very, very good. And I say, for a young photographer, if he wants to learn anything, if he wants to learn the trade, is go to visit these pilgrimages or walk with them. And it's hard not to take a good picture.
I also think it's important to note that at the time the church was in the opposition. It was opposed to the regime.
Yes. This is actually a very, very important point because in those days, in the days of communism, of course, then the church was on the right side, in a sense, the correct side.
Was happy to support the church.
Absolutely, and the church was happy to help. Now, of course, it's changed completely, and it's the fund's no longer there. I mean, it's all different. And for some reason, the church decided that they have to be on the side of the right wing for some, or even the extreme right wing. So this is bad news for anybody, actually.
Did you say 10 days walking with these people?
Exactly 10 days, yeah.
And I find it very surprising, very hard to believe, really, that you didn't get to know anyone. You didn't talk to anyone. You didn't.
Not really.
You're a friendly guy.
Maybe to a few priests or monks or something. But basically, I think a photographer, at least in my case, I'm just intent on photographing something. So I'm not really interested in really in some interaction in terms of talking.
Yeah, but you're there for 2 weeks.
But I'm walking. Remember, I'm walking.
So are they.
But as I say, a photographer is there to photograph, not necessarily to speak to someone.
It sounds very lonely, though.
Well, maybe I'm a solitary guy in a sense. Even though I was working with three other photographers, which made it more fun, really. But basically, I like working on my own.
But you also like to chat and to joke and.
Maybe.
Maybe not on a pilgrimage.
Maybe just a joke. But, what can you joke about with 50,000 people? I mean, it's not...
They look like fun, especially this lady.
Yeah.